Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar organized by TUNAP project. In this webinar we will see in detail the environmental governance process that we developed from server live in the Interreg wetnet project and which led to the signing of the wetland contract in the Albufera de Valencia. I am Pablo Vera and I was responsible for the technical part of the wetnet project. Currently I am also in charge of the technical part of TUNAP project. With the collaboration of my colleague Diana Ferris, we have developed this webinar that we hope you will find it interesting and inspiring for developing your own governance process. This webinar is structured in 3 presentations. The first one is an analysis of the environmental and social context of the Albufera de Valencia, that is our pilot area. We have framed the presentation so that the main threats and pressures on the wetland can be better understood. We will also see how this initial diagnosis has been used to define the strategy and develop the participatory process. The second presentation will deal with experience lived in the development of the territorial labs, highlighting the lessons learned in the Albufera context that may be useful for the development of other processes. Finally, in the third presentation, we will show how the current situation of the wetland contract Albufera is going on, both in the development of the action plan and in the incorporation of new entities. In the 3 blocks, we have included a series of videos with interviews that we hope will be useful for you to raise a better understanding of the context covered in the webinars. Our pilot area in the project wetnet is located in the east of the Iberian Peninsula in the Gulf of Valencia. Albufera, as a Natura 2000 site, has almost 30,000 hectares with a terrestrial and freshwater protected area that is in the blue line. This area is composed by rice fields, a large lagoon, and the entire coastline. In addition, the Natura 2000 site has a marine part that is the front of this blue line in the sea, which is our pilot area in the TUNAP project. Albufera is located just in the south of the Valencia city, and as you will see, is surrounded by urban areas of a total of 13 municipalities that have a surface within the protected area. The development of all these urban areas and the industrial fabric were within the biggest environmental problems of Albufera in the last century. Regarding the regulatory framework, Albufera is a Natura 2000 site, both for its importance for the conservation of birds, according to Birds Directive, and a site of community importance for the conservation of flora, fauna, and habitats, according to Habitats Directive. At the international level, it is part of 2 inventories that designate sites of high relevance for the conservation of biodiversity, such as Ramsar Convention and the important biodiversity areas network decided by BirdLife International. At the national level, it is part of the Spanish inventory of wetlands, and at the regional level, it is declared as a natural park, only the terrestrial park part of the site, including 2 flora microreserves and 1 fauna microreserve. Several threatened species management plans apply to the protected area, such as Valencia hispanica, that is a small endemic species, and birds such as Adowing gull, marsh harrier, European bittern, eastern Iberian red bunting, and marble teal. As regards to habitats, Albufera has representation of 16 of the habitats listed in the Habitats Directive, and 5 of them are considered as priority habitats for the conservation of biodiversity in Europe, mainly those related to aquatic ecosystem environments with good quality water. The main value of the wetlands are birds, being a key site during the breeding season, also during migration and during the winter. About 300 species of birds are observed all around the year, of which near 100 species are listed in the Annex 1 of the Birds Directive. Among them, herons, seagulls, terns, and ducks are the most important groups. And in addition, some specific and relevant species are present in the regional context, such as the marble teal, white-headed duck, purple swamp hen, Kentish plover, and crested coot. Other relevant species of fauna are fishes, reptiles, and mammals, although this last group is composed only by 4 species of bats. La Albufera has always been a wetland where the culture of the region has grown around it. As a culture closely linked to the lagoon, culture of Albufera has some heritage that are related to traditional ways of obtaining the resource and wildlife from the lagoon. Fishing and sailing have been recently declared as a property of cultural interest and in the regional context. For example, fishing has a long tradition and it is based on a fisherman's community with more than 700 years of history, being one of the oldest in Spain. The Latin sailing has its origin in the navigation practices extended during the last 2 millennia all around the Mediterranean. And possibly all of you are familiar with some kind of sailing in your regions that are similar to the photo in the right. In this sense, it is essential to carry out a critical context analysis that tries to integrate the environmental, regulatory, and social aspects of the network area. In the wetnet project, 3 context analyses were carried out for covering each of these aspects, seeking to seize the growth of some synergies that may arise during the process. The analysis of the environmental context showed that the main threats and pressures on biodiversity were related to water and its management. On the one hand, the quality of the water, as you see in the photo, La Albufera is surrounded by a large area of rice fields and marks the end of a highly intensified agricultural basin. Currently, it's a wetland that has eutrophic waters with low transparency in the water due to high density of cyanobacteria that avoid the development of submerged plants that are, in fact, the basis of the aquatic system. Although this scenario, the situation is better than that of 30 or 40 years ago, but its ecological status is still far from being considerable favorable. Likewise, the amount of water that reaches the wetland is much greater than that which arrived a few decades ago, as you see in this graph. It is not greater, it is fewer the amount of water that arrives. So currently, with this less availability of water, water management in the system is subjected to agriculture and hunting, and not so much to the conservation of biodiversity. The management of water is made by this kind of gates and channels that you see in the photo that crosses the coastline. Traditionally, rice fields have been considered as allies of wetland biodiversity, providing space for aquatic ecosystems, in addition to nesting, feeding, or nest resting areas for protected birds. However, agricultural intensification and poorly environmental measures, not well fit with purpose, are currently leading to a large-scale loss of biodiversity along wide areas in the Mediterranean and Asia, which also is perceived in Albufera. Other general problems of wetlands are also present in Albufera, such as exotic invasive species, roads, urban expansion, or not well-defined public use. As an entity dedicated to the study and conservation of birds, we usually work with birds as indicators for understanding the conservation status of the habitats. Through the ecological requirements, this is made, and they allow us to know the health of the ecosystems. In the case of Albufera, the water birds that are shown in the table are the species that may be considered indicators of the status of coastal lagoons habitats. As you can see, most of these waterfowl are in a negative situation. So the unfavorable situation or status of these aquatic birds, together with all the previously issues that we have seen, is or are warning us. We must put the focus on the water management. It is important to emphasize that not only biodiversity is at risk in albufera, there are other pressures and threats on the socioeconomic system, especially that related to traditional agriculture and fishing. The sustainability of rice farming is threatened for several reasons, mainly related to the effects of climate change in the medium and long term. These are, for example, the lower availability of water, which is promoting the implementation of new agricultural techniques, for example, dry rice cultivation, or the salinization of the substrate, which has notable effects on rice production. Water quality also affects fishing, especially fish that support traditions and culture, such as the eel, anguilla. The presence of exotic species in Albufera Lagoon and the irrigation channels of the rice fields is increasing. And in fact, the appearance of some exotic species, such as the American blue crab, has caused the need to undertake a rapid adaptation and change the materials with which fishing nets are made, since this species catch traditional nets with its clamps. Finally, the current challenge for growing tourist pressure in the wetland has also to do with the quality of experience of public use and with keeping alive and transmitting the relationship of the wetland with its products. The regulatory framework for water management in Albufera is necessarily linked to the conservation of biodiversity. This relationship occurs through the National Law of Water, which incorporates the Water Framework Directive into national legislation, and therefore forcing the wetland to be kept in good condition. On the other hand, the Natural Law on Natural Heritage and Biodiversity incorporates Habitats and Birds Directive international legislation, forcing the habitats and species of their annexes to be kept in a good state of conservation, and to declare protected areas to ensure their protection. Along with the regional legislation on protected areas, both national laws require the establishment of two major plans to improve its status: the management plans for the Natura 2000 site and the river basin plan, which, despite covering a very wide geographic space, it must ensure the availability of water resources to maintain the albufera in good condition. A very important aspect to both cases is that they have their own corresponding governance process, led by the two most important administrations, the regional government and the River Basin Authority. Both are, therefore, key stakeholders in the process. Water management in Albufera is a very complex issue. There are up to 5 types of entities with competencies in their management, distributed throughout the territory. These entities include the regional government, the River Basin Authority, the 13 municipalities, the managing entity of the sewage treatment plants, and the irrigation communities. This map represents the complexity of the problem to be addressed and gives an idea of why it is so difficult to coordinate the water management considering all the different stakes. Actually, this coordination and managing the holistic vision of the system has been one of the objectives that the project has worked on, and one of the main focus of the wetland contract. Here we have included a sort of interview of me and Maria Sauquillo, that is the responsibility of wetland monitoring in the Valencia regional government. This video was made during the summer school of wetnet project, and here we provide a series of reflection on water management in Albufera.
albufera, soy técnico de proyectos de SEO BirdLife, que es la Sociedad Española de Ornitología, representante de BirdLife International en España. Somos una ONG, una entidad privada, no gubernamental y sin ánimo de lucro, que trabajamos en la conservación de humedales y creemos en la gobernanza como una herramienta fundamental para conseguir mejorar la gestión de los humedales y su conservación mediante la participación de la sociedad. Nuestro área piloto es la albufera de Valencia, que es un humedal costero situado en el este de España, en la Comunidad Valenciana. Es un humedal muy grande, con 21.000 hectáreas, en las que la mayor parte de la superficie está ocupada por arrozales, y a los que se suma una gran laguna costera y todo lo que es el cordón dunar y el bosque litoral, que está en un buen estado de conservación.
Hola, yo soy María Sauquillo, soy bióloga y trabajo para el Gobierno valenciano, concretamente en el seguimiento de la calidad de aguas y como el mayor humedal de la Comunidad Valenciana en la albufera de Valencia, claro. La albufera de Valencia, como muchos otros humedales, se debe al agua. El agua es la que ha determinado este paisaje, el agua a través de los ríos que arrastraba los sedimentos y cerraba un golfo y formaba un lago. Esta cuenca mediterránea, precisamente escasa en agua, hay muchos usos cada vez más importantes, tanto para la agricultura como el desarrollo urbanístico, que requieren agua. Y el agua cada vez llega en menores cantidades. Y el agua, ahora tenemos el problema en la albufera de la falta de inundación invernal, que es precisamente el periodo en que los humedales tienen que estar inundados. También tenemos problemas de salinización de los acuíferos subterráneos, porque este agua que no inunda en los terrenos en invierno provoca que se facilite la intrusión marina. Tenemos problemas de subsidencia, tenemos problemas con la pesca, porque los agricultores quieren tener las compuertas cerradas y los pescadores necesitan la comunicación con el mar. Y todos estos problemas son los que hay que abordar conjuntamente, como dice este proyecto de Interreg, en el que estamos un poco todos involucrados, de gobernanza.
El proceso de gobernanza creemos que en la albufera es un proceso muy complejo, tanto porque es un espacio muy grande como porque tiene muchos intereses implicados en la gestión. Nosotros nos hemos centrado en que el proceso de gobernanza gire en torno a la gestión del agua. Y hemos hecho este enfoque porque la gestión del agua está en el centro de lo que es la conservación del humedal, ya que la mayor parte de las especies y hábitats de interés conservacionista están ligadas al agua y a los usos que se hace de ese agua, tanto en la albufera para el cultivo de arroz como en el entorno para otros tipos de cultivos.
Also, a key part of the project was to identify all the stakeholders related directly or indirectly to water management. Not only those responsible for its management, but also those interested in some way: farmers, hunters, fishermen, neighbors, tourist guides, hosteleries, and product quality association, as well as NGOs related to the environment, agriculture, and culture, and also other sectoral agencies and research centers. After an intensive search, 77 entities were identified as stakeholders. It is a very large number of stakeholders to be addressed in the territorial labs. For this reason, it was decided to carry out a filtering to identify which stakeholders will need to be ensured its participation. For this filtering, the interest they could have for the agreement was taken into account, as well as the practical value they had both in participating and in signing the agreement, and also their degree of commitment for the future development of the contract. In this way, the filtering process left the stakeholder map at the number of 40 stakeholders, a much more manageable number. The rest of the 37 stakeholders were not excluded from the process. They were formally invited to participate and were kept informed at all times of the progress of the participatory process. In fact, some of them have actively participated in the process. Next, we have another video that was recorded during wetnet project in Seville. And this video we think is interesting for giving some context for the following sections.
Sí, pues es imprescindible, ¿no? Contemplar, o sea, la gestión no solo con pensarla o planificarla con la situación actual, sino darle un enfoque de futuro más en un escenario que ya sabemos, empezamos a tener un conocimiento bastante desarrollado de cómo va a ser en los próximos años, ¿no? En el caso de los humedales son un tipo de ambientes muy susceptibles a verse alterados por el cambio climático, principalmente por una menor disponibilidad del agua y en algunos sitios por la introgresión salina, que cambiará muchas de esas comunidades, pero al mismo tiempo es que son unos hábitats o unos espacios naturales clave para mitigar los efectos del cambio climático sobre la población, con lo cual tenemos que planificar muy bien cómo gestionarlos, no solo para evitar problemas en las especies o en los hábitats, sino que nos siga proveyendo de servicios ecosistémicos y al fin y al cabo sean un lugar bueno para nosotros también.
Well, and a key aspect for the development of the project was the management of our own participation in it. Our organization has been linked to albufera since our declaration before the wetland was protected. The work of the ornithologists in the 60s, 70s, and in the 80s was key to protect the wetland. Currently, as a scientific entity, we have a prominent role as members of the consultant board, and at the same time, we manage 3 reserves and maintain collaboration with the public bodies that are in charge of the management of the Natura 2000 site. A fact that does not prevent us from doing technical and political work to improve biodiversity conservation and environmental protection. Given our environmental profile, some stakeholders may misunderstand that wetnet territorial labs could be biased, and that the results will be adapted to our convenience. For these reasons, a special effort was made to prepare and launch the territorial labs with administrations, ensuring the future significance of the wetland project. But at the same time, when the process started, we took a step back and sit down with the rest of the stakeholders at the same level and participate as one more entity. With this consideration, we close the first part of the webinar of the albufera wetland contract on the wetnet project. We hope that the vision that we have shared about the environmental and social context of albufera and how we prepare the territorial labs has been useful to all of you. And in the second part, we will show how the territorial labs were developed and how the albufera wetland contract was defined. So please follow us in the second part.